Channel 2, English. 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 Channel 2, English.
Hello and welcome to this last plenary session of this year. It's great to have you with us. And of course, I hand over to our group president, Iratxe García Perez, for an outlook on this plenary. Iratxe.
Buenos días. Yes, good morning. Good morning to everybody and welcome to our last meeting before the Christmas break. And I would like to start off by wishing all of you restful holidays and good holidays, and that you are able to recharge your batteries over the holidays and you can take a rest from these very intense months behind us. And I would also like to take this opportunity as the president of the Social and Democrat group to express our solidarity with everybody who's suffered from the cyclone, especially in Mayotte, because we have seen that it has been particularly damaging. Obviously, we have to make progress in prevention and protecting people from these events. Yesterday, there was a debate on the Restore regulation, and there is going to be a debate as well on this specific case of the cyclone in the region of Mayotte. And I think I really have to stress one particular aspect, and that is that as the European Union, we have to be ever better protected to implement, firstly, prevention measures, and then also act rapidly in the face of natural disasters, because unfortunately, I think these natural disasters are going to become ever more frequent and repeat themselves as a result of climate change. And I think this is something that we've been insisting upon for quite some time now. Climate change kills. And obviously, denying climate change is not good. So obviously, those who continue to insist that they, in denial of climate change, they are complicit in then what happens in these kind of situations. So this is the last plenary session of the year, and I would like to briefly reflect on what's happened over the first 6 months of this new parliament. We started off with the results of the European Parliament elections. We managed to put a halt on a very likely situation, as had been predicted, i.e. that the rise of the far right, where they would have more or less a majority position. But I think we were able to put a brake on that situation. But we are fully aware of the fact that, of course, the extreme right has a much stronger position than they have ever had in previous parliaments. So we have to call upon the responsibility of pro-European forces and groups and strengthen our alliances and cooperate ever more to ensure that we can continue to build up on the Europe that we've known up until now. In July, we saw the political priorities of the European Commission. We also obviously stressed our own priorities. Since the official start of the new Parliament, obviously only a few months have gone by. And over these first few months of the new Parliament, we have tried to focus on the priorities for our political group for the new European Commission. My first official mission as the president of the group was a trip to Ukraine last week. As very many of you know, this was not a coincidental visit. I realized, of course, that as the president of our political group, this was going to be my first official trip in order to give our full unconditional support to Ukraine in the defense of their territory and defense of freedoms and European values, and obviously of human rights. As a result of this first mission, we did have an opportunity to meet at the highest level with the Speaker of the Rada, with the Prime Minister, with President Zelensky, and we transmitted to them our very firm position when it comes to building up European unity. And we also relayed the idea and the commitment to the Ukrainians that we wanted to turn the current subcommittee on defence into a full committee, so on an equal footing with the other parliamentary committees, because obviously defence is going to be one of the major challenges in the coming years. This was news that was very much welcomed. And then, of course, we had to insist, we also insisted on other points during the course of our agenda, the other meetings we had in Ukraine. We have to have full support of the European Union to Ukraine when it comes to the economic sector, military, humanitarian sectors, and obviously try and cater for all the needs and requirements that Ukraine needs and the Ukraine army. And then, of course, what do we do with the frozen assets of Russia, how to use them? This is something we've been discussing over the past few months, and we have approached Kaja Kallas, the High Representative, over this. If we're able to use 200 million euro for reconstructing, rebuilding Ukraine, I think this is of fundamental importance. This would be a first step, of course, because also there's the potential use of the interests on the assets. And we have to make sure that we have an ambitious proposal on this. And then on Wednesday, the European Parliament is going to give the green light to the new parliamentary committees, including a special committee on housing. And this was one of our demands as a political group right from the outset of this new parliament. Today, housing is one of the major problems for people around Europe. You could say just for young people, but it's not limited to young people. It's a problem for all our citizens. So now that we have a commissioner who's responsible for housing and a special committee on housing, which is going to take a look at how Europe can better move forward and make progress in policies in this area, is absolutely essential. When it comes to the plenary session and the most important issues that are going to be debated, we're going to have a debate with the High Representative on the change of regime in Syria. That's ongoing. The situation in Syria, as all of you are aware, is very unstable, and we want to call to the European Union to ensure that there is negotiation with all parties, allowing for a peaceful transition, and this very much in line with the UN Resolution 2254. Obviously, you can't change to become a democracy overnight. This takes some time. It requires work and effort, and we have to ensure that there is no power vacuum. And we have to also look at the aspect of the return of Syrian refugees to Syria. There are about 7 million Syrians spread around the world, 3 million in Turkey, 1 million in the European Union. And obviously then there is a government that has to be set which will guarantee plurality, respect to minorities, and of individual rights, in particular of women, and guarantee everything that's required for public life. Then there's the issue of TikTok and the action of social platforms. We've seen an unprecedented situation in the European Union, the cancelling of elections in Romania, where it was decided that there had been interference and manipulation during the course of the elections. So obviously we have to sound the alarm and say that from the European Union, we have to be able to act in these kind of situations, because this is not an isolated case. We are seeing with concern that there are disinformation campaigns in other countries as well. And obviously, this is an attack on our democracies. The European Union has a role to play and certain duties that they have to carry out, and we have to be able to. We've got legislation on data protection and privacy, and the Code of Practice of the European Union on disinformation. So we have to make sure that these are the steps we take. This is how we act from within the European Union. And the European Parliament, obviously, we have to do our bit to defend our democracies, and this is a duty for all of us. And in order to conclude this initial part of my presentation, and then we can take questions, as I said once again, a very Merry Christmas to all of you, and I wish you all a good start to the new year. And I hope you enjoy the festive period with your nearest and dearest, because obviously it's nice for them to be able to count on our company, our affection. So I wish you all the best for these holidays.
Iratxe, now it's time for your questions. Please introduce yourself.
Oui. Oui, Madame la Présidente.
Thank you, Chair. There is a cry of alarm from Kurdish women within the autonomous Kurdish administration who are being massacred by the militia supported by Turkey, which is called the Free Syrian Army. And I'd like to know what your message is to the Kurdish people, not just words, but how can they be supported, given that Kurds are still part of the international coalition.
Insisto en que...
Well, I would stress that the original situation in terms of the Syrian regime is a situation that has an impact on stability throughout the region. And what Europe needs to do is to be a strong player in power, in being able to guarantee peace throughout the region. And as I said earlier, we need to defend everyone's rights, particularly the most vulnerable, particularly women. That's what I said earlier. So that's what our request will be to the High Representative and all EU institutions.
Gracias. Are there further questions? Anybody? Online? Yes. Paulina Pacula. Paulina, can you hear us?
Yes. Good morning. I can hear you. Can you hear me?
Yes. Can you please introduce yourself?
Yes. My name is Paulina Pacula. I'm a journalist from Okopres, Poland. I wanted to ask you, Iratxe, one question. You mentioned the rise of the far right in the new parliament and your responsibility to build on and act with the democratic pro-European majority. And SD has been standing up against any cooperation with far right very strongly. But I wanted to ask you, there's a problem. Even some SD parties do not adhere to this principle. For example, in Lithuania, yesterday, the new government started to work. And it's the government created by the Lithuanian Social Democratic Party, who just won elections. And the coalition is formed with an Eurosceptic nationalist small party, Nemunas Down. The leader of this party is accused of anti-Semitic statements. The idea for this government sparked protests across the country around a month ago, so right after the election. So I wanted to ask you, why did the groups try to stop this? If not, why? Especially that you have tools, you can expel a party from the group, for example, if they contradict such important fundaments of your group identity. So I wanted to ask you, what was your approach to this and what actions you took? Thank you.
Yes, thank you very much. Well, obviously, yes, we respect the politics, the dynamics of the alliance of our different parties, the governments. It's very diverse, of course, and we have no doubt whatsoever when it comes to the pro-European and pro-socialist democratic commitments of the sister party in Lithuania, so we're not going to be taking any action. I'm quite sure that the Lithuanian government is going to be working with a pro-European agenda, with a progressive agenda, one which aims to improve the life of its Lithuanian citizens. Thank you.
Introduce yourself.
Hola, buenos días. Max Grier en Político.
Max from Politico. Renew Europe is drawing up a draft that goes into how to apply the cordon sanitaire, the Patriot, CCR and ESN. Will there be any kind of document from S&D? And then what do you think about Renew in this draft? Seems to be dividing the ECR between those that are acceptable and those MEPs that are blacklisted. What do you think about that approach, which is very similar to the EPs? Well, our group has worked on that right since the start of this parliament, and we have clear red lines, which where we believe that the ESN and the Patriots are two political groups that our group will have no cooperation with, and we will be against any kind of proposal that comes from them regarding the ECR. We're also aware that within that group there are various different political parties. So far, in terms of committees in the Parliament, there are various different dynamics, and what we've established as a group, and that could change for ECR in the future, is to go case by case. We'll have to look at each committee, each file, and look at the exact circumstances and what position we need to take to do with their political positions.
Thank you. We have another question online. Simone Martuccelli. Simone, can you hear us? Simone? Ci sei? The mic doesn't seem to work.
Okay.
Can you hear us?
To work now?
Yes. Okay. Please
Okay.
introduce yourself.
Yes, Simone Martuscelli, Italian press agency AGI. I have two questions, actually. First one is on Syria. I wanted to know what is your position on the return of refugees, both on a voluntary basis and on, of course, the returns. And the second one is on automotive. Like the EPP now has made what it seems to be like a step back. They don't ask to discuss the targets, the climate targets, but they ask to sort of reaching them in a more neutral technology way. So, is this less of a red line for the S&D group? Thank you.
Gracias. Con respecto a los...
Yes, thank you. When it comes to the Syrian refugees, we have seen with concern the decision taken by certain governments on a unilateral basis, i.e. to suspend the right to asylum when it comes to Syrian refugees. This is something that is not at all acceptable, i.e. double standards. I'd just like to recall that when the war started in Ukraine, Europe took a decision, the right decision, when it came to the Ukrainian refugees, i.e. to welcome them with open arms, because these people were coming onto European territory and they were supported, obviously, with all the necessary means and resources in order to restart their lives. And what we know we are not going to accept is a first-class, second-class refugees. We're not going to accept a differentiation or distinction being made between refugees because of the color of their skin or their religion. So we are very much against these unilateral decisions that have been taken by certain member states, and we're going to be very vigilant to make sure that the European respects the right to asylum. On the car industry, this is something that was decided, what you're referring to was decided under the previous parliament, i.e. how to progress in the transition towards the electric cars in order to achieve our climate change targets. Our group is against revising the targets. So we feel there are certain levels of ambition in the Green Deal. But if we want to make sure that the transition takes place as best possible, we have to make sure that car industry is properly prepared for the transition, and we are very open for debate, but not in favour of reducing the targets we set under the previous Parliament.
Are there further questions? If that's not the case, before we leave, I would like to announce un'altra? I don't see. Okay. I would like to make one more announcement. As you know, we have our own Sakharov candidates for the Sakharov Award. These are from Israel and Palestine NGOs, women NGOs who fight on a daily basis for the peace over there. So Women Wage Peace and Women of the Sun from Israel and Palestine, the NGOs and their directors, will be with three of our MEPs today, Chloé Ridel, Raphael Glucksmann and Thijs Reuten, and are ready to talk to you, to the press, at 16:15 in room N1 1B. So please join us there, and they will also join us in the group tonight. With this said, thanks a lot, Iratxe, to all your engagement throughout this year with US journalists. Thank you all for being in touch with us all the year, and have a good Christmas and a good, happy New Year. Thank you.